Hey everyone, so back in 2005, a game called The Movies allowed players to live out their dream of running their own Hollywood film studio. Now, almost 20 years later, a new game tries to recapture that very concept. But does it succeed? Well, today I'll be reviewing Blockbuster Inc., which is a movie studio management tycoon game that puts you in the director's chair of your very own movie empire. In the game, you'll be constructing your own studio from the ground up, editing your movies in great detail, hiring unknown actors and taking them to stardom, as well as attempting to chase box office success at the yearly awards ceremony. So coming up, I'll be giving you an overview of the game, the various gameplay mechanics, like what it's like to create your first movie, the game's performance, graphics and sound, and more to help you decide if it's worth a buy or not. For me personally, as someone who greatly enjoyed the movies, I found Blockbuster Inc.'s execution to be lacking in some areas. Don't get me wrong, it does many things well too. It's very smooth, editing your movies is fantastic, and designing your own studio is awesome. But the game's almost broken difficulty and lack of content really put a damper on my experience. So stay tuned to see if movie tycoon games are finally back, or like a bad movie sequel, pretend that it never happened. This is Marco here from Easily Distracted Games, helping you find new or old games for you to get lost in. So let's get started with today's new video. Blockbuster Inc. is a strategic movie studio tycoon / simulation game where you build and operate your own movie studio empire from the ground up. The game was created by a small 3-person team, developed by Super Sly Fox and published by Ancient Forge, and was released in June this year. Your goal is to become the biggest and most prestigious film studio in Hollywood. Filmwood, by taking an empty plot of land and trying your best to create the ultimate movie empire with all the fun and challenge that comes along with that. The core gameplay loop involves building various movie buildings, managing your employees including demanding actors and directors, creating your own films in a robust film editor, and trying your best to snatch up the #1 movie studio versus all of your competition. And how do you do all of that? Well, I'm going to be jumping into the gameplay now to kind of give you a taste of what it's all about. So the overall gameplay follows a similar formula compared to any other good tycoon game. You start small, you make a bit of money, expand your business, make more money, and then repeat. It's a well-worn but satisfying gameplay loop when it's pulled off correctly. You start the game by giving your studio a name, difficulty setting, and the basic genre for your movies, which can then be added on later as you progress. Choosing a decade can also be done here, which is a cool feature as newer decades mean better technology, newer fashion, and so on. But you can also start off in an earlier decade and then proceed or progress as you play the game. Looking at the buildings, you can build all of the required rooms by scratch or use pre-made rooms, which I really enjoyed as sometimes I didn't have the time or I wasn't really sure what to do. But you will need a few buildings to get going, including rooms for your writers, your researchers, a canteen, toilets, and so on. With only a few that you start out with, but you'll be unlocking more as time goes on. I thoroughly loved the building aspect of this game, and it was really easy to do, expanding the walls and placing decoration. I was expecting a little bit more objects, and for some reason the developers seem to be obsessed with Christmas, especially in the outdoor objects. But yeah, overall the building aspect was done really well. I just wish they could add a bit more to it. But for me though, another really cool aspect was the set design. These sets and the set design play a big role in Blockbuster Inc. You can start off simple by just placing the default one down when you start, but it's extremely basic. But you can just jump into the set design editor here, which is really cool. Again, it's lacking in a bit of features here, but it's really simple to both download and upload them onto the Steam Workshop. Something I'm really looking forward to as, yeah, it's going to add to that replayability factor. Now, before you get started, you first need to hire some staff. So you'll be needing to hire the basic movie studio requirements like a director, writer, the crew members, the studio maintenance, and also someone to do your research, and of course, the actors. Everyone comes with some traits, either positive or negative, and the actors also get an athletic ability, which is pretty cool. It very much reminded me of The Sims here. Once you've hired your staff, you'll need to give them a schedule, which is an interesting feature because you can say when they're going to be working and when they're not. But then what happens at night is you're just kind of left there staring at blackness. So I really hope they can add in that skip to the next day feature. So once you've hired your staff, you've placed your buildings, you've got a set, you can now start creating both movies and TV shows a little bit later. The process is streamlined and includes a robust movie editor where you can choose the various actors, animations, costumes, and even add in some practical effects. I love that there's a video editor too, which again, you can get into the nitty-gritty of adding in your own sound effects. I mean, it's got the Wilhelm scream. What's not to love? But overall, producing your movies is a very easy process to do, and I didn't find any issues. I think perhaps the only thing that didn't really make sense was the genre sliders, which to me, I still don't really know if they helped. I just put everything on full or nothing, and I couldn't really notice if there was a change. So hopefully that gets kind of tweaked soon. But I like that there's a lot of different options that you can choose here. During the movie making process, you get to watch the actors and directors do everything that would kind of come with doing a scene or directing the film. And you get to see them dress the parts and act out the scenes, which is really cool. However, developers, please add some sound in here. I found it so sad where I can see them doing everything and going from scene to scene, but it just felt kind of lackluster when you can't hear anything. Like, come on, just add some gun sound effects or something. But once you're done with the movie, you can release it and then wait for the critics. And for me personally, I was always trying to impress that cat reviewer. I don't know, for some reason impressing a cat always felt like a big deal. So eventually you'll get to the awards ceremony, which is again incredibly easy. And this is something I really want to touch on, is the game's difficulty. After my first year, which if you're curious, I've posted it in the top that you can just check out to see what your first year of gameplay will be like. I had around 10 times the profits compared to my competition. My first few movies were very poorly reviewed. They were pretty much donkey doo-doo, but they still made so much money that I could buy all the extra land, all the extra equipment, and I never really had to worry about money from then on out. And for me, this is one of the biggest gripes I have with this game, is the balancing. I think it has so much potential here, but I felt like after the first year, there wasn't any challenge. There wasn't any need for me to make my sets any better because I could just keep basically with the default one and still outperform everyone. So overall, I found the gameplay to be decent, but there's so much room for improvements. And next up, I'm going to be talking about the graphics and performance and sound, as again, there is some room for improvement here too. I think on the technical side, the game is relatively well optimized. However, I did notice some cracks appearing here and there. I mean, the graphics themselves look great. The colors really pop. It really gave me that Sims vibe, and I never really encountered any kind of weird bugs there, but I did kind of struggle with the lag of the game. Sometimes when there was a lot of snow and rain, someone actually told me in the Discord that I had to disable some graphics settings, which did make a big difference. As yeah, when you start placing a lot of objects and the weather comes in, which is sad because I love the weather effects in this game, it just started to really lag and I wasn't really the biggest fan, and you can kind of notice it in my gameplay too. But looking at the UI, I do think that again is really visually appealing. It's very responsive and I just really enjoyed the overall sleek look to it. Again, there is still a lot of areas for improvement. I mean, I'm a Tycoon lover here and there's just not enough graphs. I mean, like, devs, just make a lot of graphs. I love seeing some line graphs here, and I think that there is a lot of room for improvement there too. Again, now looking at the audio, oof, this one really got to me because yes, it's got some relaxing music and the menu sounds are decent, but that background music becomes very repetitive, especially when you're listening to it in the build mode, you're listening to it in the gameplay, even when, say, like editing your movies. And you also have to take note that you're going through the different decades. So the songs should, I don't know, I feel like they could change according to what decade you're in, but that's a little nitty gritty. However, when you're looking at the overall sounds in the game, the soundscapes and the ambient sounds, there's none of that. It's very empty and quiet. There's silence, whether you're going to be in the movie side or maybe just in the buildings. Again, these are just little things that add to that enjoyment of the game, especially if you're going to be putting in so many hours in a session. You want to have some variety to the sound. Now, I must admit, I was quite obsessed with the movies when it first came out, which I think was like almost 20 years ago now, believe it or not. And if you're a fan like me, you might have been waiting for this game for quite some time. I actually bought the game within like 2 minutes of it coming out, so you can say, yeah, I was a bit excited for this. But after playing it for about 10 years in the game, I must admit I felt like there was a lot lacking, simply because I knew what this game could have been. However, you have to remember that this is just a 3-person team, and the movies was run by Lionhead Studios, which had a whole team behind them. With that in mind, if you love Tycoon games, and this is still piquing your interest, it's probably the closest thing you're going to be getting to a well-rounded movie studio management game. I must say though that Blockbuster Inc. is reasonably priced here, coming in at around $23, plus there's a Prologue 2, which is a bit like a demo if you're still unsure. But I will say this, I've spent some time in their Discord and I can tell you these devs are very passionate about their game and are constantly taking on new feedback and releasing new updates to enhance the gameplay. So should the game have been in early access? I think so. A full release is a bold move, Cotton, and now they're seeing how it's paying off. And because of that, I don't recommend Blockbuster Inc. for now. It's one of those games where I'd say, you know what, I love the whole idea and it shows a ton of promise and potential. So if it were me, I'd give it a few more months or so and wait for the difficulty balancing, the quality of life improvements, and just more stuff to be added to the game. As yeah, like I said, there's so much promise and potential here. So let me know if you've had a chance to play it yet and what you think in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this review, maybe give it a like and subscribe if you haven't done so to help find more games for you to get lost in. But other than that, it's Marco here from Easily Distracted Games, and most of all, don't stop gaming.